and welcome to kind of a part two of the last video in which we were talking about our album projects and what's going on. And so as we were going into this project and we had decided to do a 6-song EP for Christmas, we also had decided to address the situation with our current state of health in this country. And I'm using very couched terms so that this video passes muster, and we are able to say things in lyrics that it might get by certain censors and be able to be available to you. And so we're really encouraging you to look up a copy of this, even though it's not going to come out now until the new year. Anyway, we had put enough money aside to do a project a certain way, and what happened in that process is that we lost certain studio capacity, we lost certain ability of people to hold on to the project long enough to make it into a reality. And so we have two choices. One is to delay the project, and the other is to come up with a lot more money. And so we are trying to do both. We're trying to push the project off, but of course we are also trying to create a fundraiser for the record. So if this is of interest to you and the issues of government control and tyranny are issues that you face, and the idea of a divided society is not something we divide between the haves and the have-nots when it comes to vaccines. And actually, when you think about this, the idea of a vaccine was supposed to be that if we could get everybody vaccinated, we wouldn't have a host left for the virus, and therefore, everybody would be protected. That is a pipe dream because, first of all, we have discovered that there is really a large capacity for people who are vaccinated to still get infected. And because of that, they say, well, the disease is less severe. Well, but less severe disease is a personal choice if somebody decides to be vaccinated or not. It doesn't protect anybody else. So the idea that we're going to get rid of this in the same way we got rid of a number of diseases in the past by producing these vaccines and making sure everybody gets them, and we're just going to get rid of all of the hosts, therefore have no virus left. Well, what we've got now is we've got, some hippopotamus in Europe has been quarantined now because it's been tested positive for COVID, and you've got the white-tailed deer in Michigan and in Canada all testing positive for COVID. And so the reality is you're not going to get rid of the hosts, therefore you're not going to eradicate the disease. The disease is going to be with us like the flu. And so we are now dealing with an endemic, not a pandemic. And the severity is going away as well. If you look at the new data on all the new different, I'm going to call it phases, you know what I mean. But if you look at the ongoing propagation of these cases that we have, you see that the difference between what started and what is now is completely different in lethality, and as a result what you're dealing with is really about control, and it's about people not willing to let go of a narrative or admit they were wrong or that they've done any damage to society or actually killed people because of their political restrictions on certain attempts to solve the problem. So we are looking at this and we're saying, is this an okay world to live in? And my response is no, I don't think so. I don't want to live in that kind of a world. And I don't think you do. When it comes right down to it, do you want to continue to, for the sake of a few $billions being transferred into very few hands, away from all of the population, and the money taken completely out of the middle class and transferred to the very, very rich and the very, very privileged? And those are the people pulling the strings. Those are the people in power. Those are the people who are continuing to benefit from this narrative, if you will. And so we've got a situation in which there's no way out. It's going to be continued and continued and continued and never come to an end. And yet, none of the solutions are even solutions anymore. They're just not. If the virus is in the animal population that lives in the wild, there's no way to get rid of it by vaccinating human beings. So there you go. This, of course, brings us to the subject matter of the albums in question. This is what we're talking about. And we're talking about the right again to have freedom, the right again to be a free people, and to get rid of this narrative that would seek to divide us, and to create one humanity again that's concerned for each other, we've seen over and over again that the rhetoric coming from one side, the unvaccinated camp, if you will, the people who don't want to get this thing, are not wishing harm on the people who do. But it's amazing the number of people who are committed vaccine specialists or, advocates who really want death and destruction, and I hope you lose your job, and I hope that, this kind of rhetoric is coming from the other side. And I'm like, what happened to, we actually care about each other? What happened to the idea that this is about safety for you and safety for me and safety for my family and for your family and everybody else? The motivation that was supposed to be there is actually working backwards in one side of the issue. And I see which side is being shut down by government. It's when somebody doesn't have an argument, they want to silence the other side. And I see I see, instead of having an open discussion and all points of view coming to the table and the real scientific side therefore winning because the facts are out, I see that the facts are totally suppressed on one side. And as a result, we have a problem. So anyway, as a songwriter and as a longtime activist, I have been moved to write songs about the situation. And so it's not vaxxed, anti-vaxxed. I have people in my family that are and that aren't, and I love them both, and they're all welcome at Christmas dinner, which is going to happen. And whether or not the government likes it or not, I have a large family. I have more than 10 children. So they're going to tell me that I can't have my own family in my own house. And I'm going to say, I'm sorry, but we're going to ignore that. And if that gets me in trouble, okay. I'm willing to go to jail over this. I'm willing to, whatever it takes, because we have to change the kind of society that we're building right now. And we're not going to do that until we push back. And so I'm pushing back, telling people that have no right to tell me what to do with my Christmas, to get out of my Christmas. And that's the reality of my life. So if you are of like mind, if you have the same approach to your personal freedom and to the value of your privacy and your own medical decisions and all those things, I'm going to suggest that you support our album because it's really important. Okay, so the album was titled Feeling Used Yet. Well, the problem is, of course, that I've written over 100 songs on this topic, and choosing and selecting and getting down, well, we had everything down to like 11 songs plus 6 Christmas songs, and that's what we were producing in the studio. And what ended up happening was we realized that with the new material that was constantly being written, that we had really 2 albums worth. And so we tried to make the Christmas album into part Christmas, part COVID, and that didn't work out too well. And so we added a new song here and a new song there until actually what's being produced is 2 albums. And so we've got now Feeling Used Yet, the first one, which is now going to be a 10-song record. And the second one is called Dark Road. And it is more of the same, if you will. It's more of the same content. And what it does for us, why we want to, is because we're going to be doing some fundraising concerts to help people fight fines. And that is the intention. We've got some ideas out there. We're floating a lot of things out there. But having enough material to give people a 2-hour show isn't going to happen out of one record. And so we were developing these things live, and we thought, you know what? Let's just keep going. We're in the studio. We're going to go forward. So there's another record on the table. And everything is in process. So we're in the middle of this. We do need to raise some extra money because we have an extra record to do. We have the ability to go out there and produce that very first fundraising concert because we don't want to charge the people who are facing, huge fines. We want to do this on their behalf and not for the sake of, digging into their pockets for the production costs and make sure that the concerts happen. And so having 2 albums to sell would normally give us enough money to continue to do concerts on behalf of these people. With new restrictions, who knows? Maybe we're going to end up doing Zoom concerts and or online shows or live shows. I don't know how it's going to go. We're wide open to making some of these happen. But in the same spirit of making those things happen, we have to realize that we're short technical people. We're short people that know what they're doing. I write music. I don't a computer business. I'm trying, but I'm a long way from being successful at learning how. So again, it's like there's so many things that we're that we're facing. And we do need a team. We need your help in so many ways. We need people who know what they're doing and who believe in our cause and who are able to help us promote. We're interested in people who can help us with technical. We're interested in all kinds of things. So it's not just your money, but we definitely need some of that as well. And so if this is something that moves you and God is tugging at your heart to be a part of this, we want to honor God as supreme, God as the one who controls all things and who gives authority its spheres in which to operate. And when a government or any other sphere decides that they're bigger than God and that they can change the rules and that they don't need permission, but because they were elected to a position or they weren't appointed to a position, however they got to wherever they got, the full idea of who they are is defined in the Bible. It's not defined by what they think they ought to have. And so tyrants throughout history have believed that they were above the law. And we created in our Western culture the idea that all men were equal under the law. And it didn't matter whether they wore a title or not. And there was no such thing to being entitled and above God. And yet that is where so many people actually believe. They believe in an idol called science. And Paul addresses this in Timothy, and he says, there's science falsely so called that is going to raise its head. And there are people who follow that, and it's a false idea, because the science that we even talk about right now is not open to question. It's not open to challenge. Well, I don't know of any science in all of history that's been not open to question. If science was closed, we would still have bloodletting. George Washington died probably prematurely because he had medical attention. He had the best of science at his bedside as he got ill and eventually passed away. The science was wrong, and we know that now. And as we learn more and more about the diseases facing us, we will learn that many of our actions were wrong. They weren't just, innocent things that, oh, well. No, these are things that are ending people's lives, that are ending people's pregnancies, that are ending your capacity to have children. Oh, well. Oh, I'm sorry. That doesn't work. It doesn't cut it. So just Google how many stillborns are happening now, and how many does it take before people start to wake up to the fact that this is way, way, way beyond coincidence. And they say, oh, it's completely safe. We know that because long-term safety data is not available, but we know by projecting into the future how long-term safe all these things are. Okay. Enough of my bias coming through. I am not trying to give medical advice. I am asking you to think for yourself. And that, of course, is dangerous these days. We love you, and I'll see you next week.